Hi everyone, Mike Ruzzi along with John Stalen in front of the Cranesville Fire Department. 40 years ago, John, we're talking about tornadoes that just devastated northwestern Pennsylvania.
That's right, and these guys and a number of fire departments and emergency folks were out there helping people from what was one of the most devastating natural disasters in our history and across the state as well. Tom DeVecchio takes a look at that day back in May 1985.
The storm steamrolled into Albion and Cranesville.
May 31st, 1985, a date forever etched in the memories of residents across not only Albion, but across the entire states of Pennsylvania, Ohio, and New York. On this day, one of the deadliest and most destructive tornado outbreaks in U.S. history tore across the region. The outbreak struck with ferocious intensity. Over the course of just a few hours, 41 tornadoes touched down across Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, and even Ontario, Canada. The strongest, an F5, devastated the town of Niles, Ohio, before crossing into Wheatland, Pennsylvania. Entire neighborhoods were leveled. The storm left 89 people dead, 65 in Pennsylvania and 18 in Ohio. Hundreds more were injured, and damages exceeded $600 million, which is over $1.6 billion in today's dollars. This remains the only F5 tornado ever recorded in Pennsylvania, and one of the last such storms before the enhanced Fujita scale was introduced in 2007.
You got a young lady out of this house behind me now.
There's an elderly gentleman down here who's pinned that they're trying to get out to.
In total, over 1,000 homes were destroyed. Families were left with nothing but the will to rebuild. From devastation to determination, the legacy of May 31st, 1985 still resonates 40 years later. I'm First Warning Weather Senior Meteorologist Tom DeVecchio.
And Mother Nature is still causing havoc across the country. 36 states already this year, Michael, have seen over 1,000 tornadoes combined. That's the most since 2011, and it's only going to get higher. And speaking of those tornadoes, you were here for that aftermath.
Yeah, I was the second reporter on duty that night. Vance McBride, our weatherman at the time, was here first. He had to go back to the station to get some video back. Then my shift started, and by 5 o'clock, things changed dramatically. Take a look. Many describe the scene as being in the movie Twister. It was much worse. I got there around 6 p.m. and a first responder described the area to me as complete carnage. It's a war zone out there. He did not exaggerate. At times, it was just so quiet. The skies dark, people in shock. And then how quickly every resident just jumped into action to help others. Then around 8 o'clock, I was walking down one of the streets and just looked at all the homes. They were gone. People crawling out of the wreckage. And I ran into one person who just moved into the area with a new home, and that new home was gone. I also remember my mother and grandmother visiting from Pittsburgh. They arrived at the old Greyhound bus station around noon. They were staying in the city of Erie, and it was difficult to connect by phone with anyone probably until around 9 o'clock that night. My dad finally got through, hopped in the car, and drove to Erie. That was the theme of the weekend in Albion and across northwest Pennsylvania. Families, friends, and complete strangers helping out in any way possible. And we're joined now by Tim Crane, the fire chief here at the Cranesville Fire Department. Tim, what was your vantage point that afternoon?
Well, I was in a garage in Albion. We had a garage working in Albion. I seen a tornado at Roger Brothers Water Tower. We got tapped for structure fire almost immediately after that to assist Albion. So I come from Albion over here on John Williams Avenue. The tornado was in between me and Sherman Road. I went by the pump house. Most of the pump house ended up in the back of my pickup. Pickup was going up and down. Finally got to the fire hall. Seen it up here, going across into the field, going towards my yard. We got the truck up, got it out, got to the trailer park, and it was just like a bomb went off.
How close were you?
Probably 20, 30 feet, something like that.
Wow. How much do those images, Tim, still remain with you to this day?
Oh, I remember it all, you know. I know it's going to be 40 years Saturday. You don't forget that stuff.
Now, I know you and other members here of the department are watching this show. Tell our audience why you're watching and the meeting you're having following.
Well, a lot of our members weren't members then, and we just like to get an idea of what can happen, even though everybody says it can't happen, what happened in '85. So just give an idea what it's going to look like, what we need to prepare for, and how much time has changed now.
And finally, how quickly did you and everyone else here jump into action? You told me some of your people were in Erie, right?
We had 2 ambulances, Albion and Cranesville were both in Erie. So when we got to trailer park, I actually went to the engine and got a crescent wrench, started shutting off the gas meters and stuff, trying to sit the people down, but that didn't. They just followed me up and down the trailer park. I was shut off the meters.
And finally, so many people here in Albion just jumped in and helped out. Is that one of the images you take as well?
Yeah, I mean, I went over to Albion a couple of days afterwards. I couldn't even remember where I was at. They gave you places to go, things to check. It was hard to recognize where you're at and stuff.
Tim, thanks so much for stopping by and everything you do in this community. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time. And John?
Yeah, that's an amazing story. And we've been hearing a lot of stories like that from Facebook, from people coming up to us just a few moments ago, telling us about their experiences as well. I do want to say, of course, this is more than just Albion, of course, Cranesville. It's across the whole state. Coming up next, Kelly Rowland's going to talk about what happened that day scientifically across the area. But as we head to break, we take a look at the enhanced Fujita scale. That was a scale to measure the strength of tornadoes after the Albion tornado. So now that's a new version. So you're going to see some different numbers here and there. But of course, we'll have more with Kelly Rowland, Philip Ward coming up in just a few moments.
Yes. Yes.
You just want me to tee you up with welcome back to our Pennsylvania tornado outbreak special. Kelly Rowland has some technology and science on what happened that day.
Yeah, you can do that, because then,
Science, but you don't.
yeah, because then I'll get right into it, and I don't know if there'll be like a natural time for you to walk away.
It was terrible. Especially when you're living in Ludlow and you're driving to Kane and there's a tornado on each side of you.
Yeah, welcome back to our Pennsylvania tornado outbreak special. Kelly Rowland joins us now, and you have some of the science that went down on May 31st of 1985.
Yeah, we're going to get a little sciencey here. I kind of want to set up the day for you. So I want to take you back. The day is May 31st, 1985. These are the normal high temperatures across the region. 73 degrees for Erie, 76 for Cleveland, and 76 down to Pittsburgh. Now we get to what actually happened that day. We reached a high temperature of 85 degrees in Erie. At the time, the high temperature record was 90 degrees set in 1944. It's still 90 degrees set in 2011, but at the time, we were 5 degrees away from the record high temperature. Cleveland, we got to 87 degrees, and into Pittsburgh, it was 81 degrees. So regionally, we had well above average temperatures. There is a lot of ingredients that come into play when it comes to forming severe thunderstorms and tornadoes. A lot of it has to do with capping in the atmosphere. Naturally, when the sun shines throughout the day, we get heating at the surface, and the basic temperature profile is cooling as you get higher up in the atmosphere. Now, there are a few things that can break this cap. This is what typically happens in a capped environment. Picture putting a balloon at the bottom of a pool. It's going to rise until it gets to the top of the pool. There's nothing else stopping it from rising. That's what happens when you get the warm air up there. So long as the environment around that parcel of air is colder than it, it's going to keep rising until it's not anymore. But then there are things that can break it. And even if you get the tiniest crack in the environment, you get sufficient heating throughout the day, you get a frontal boundary system, all bets are off. Thunderstorm clouds rise, they form, and they can be strong. And we get that temperature inversion that breaks. As soon as that breaks, it essentially zippers wherever that cap is. There were a multitude of ingredients that happened that day. We had a 984 millibar low, which is getting close to a low pressure system of a tropical storm system over the Great Lakes. We had a warm front across Pennsylvania, and we had that cold front that helped to break that cap behind it. Normally in between there, in that warm sector in Pennsylvania, we get a lot of cloud cover, but we had lots of sunshine throughout the day. So if you didn't know it, it was a beautiful summer-like day, but that cap broke over Ontario and it went south through western PA, and that's when we had the outbreak of tornadoes. This is what caused 41 tornadoes across New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, 21 of them being in Pennsylvania. That's why the Albion one was one of the first to touch down. It was kind of right along that cap and it extended into Ohio. You can just see the thunderstorm clouds building as soon as that cap broke into the evening time when the Albion one touched down at about just before 5 o'clock. So many things have changed. We've learned a lot of different things about how tornadoes form meteorologically and for the public. If we had Doppler Max 5D, if we had our social media and our warning systems now, things might have changed. Not the tornadoes, but maybe the lives saved. And our Dakota Hunter has more information on the advancing technology.
Technology in the weather enterprise has certainly advanced over the past 40 years. One of the biggest advancements has been the way the National Weather Service has issued tornado warnings. So back in 1985, they would issue warnings based on counties. So say, for example, if we had a tornado to the west of Conneaut Lake in Crawford County, moving to the northeast at 25 miles per hour, well, all of Crawford County would be under a tornado warning. And that doesn't make a lot of sense when you factor in that tornadoes are small, counties are big. So in the early 2000s, the National Weather Service revised their warning program and are now issuing based on storms. So there's our tornado again to the west of Conneaut Lake, moving northeast at 25. Now the warnings are based on geometric shapes called polygons. And these polygons focus the warning where there is a serious threat from the particular storm. So if you're in Titusville, the tornado's moving like this. You're not in the path. You don't need to shelter. And with the old county-based system, everybody in the whole county was sheltering when you didn't need to do that. It also reduces the illusion of false alarms. The fact that, well, tornado warnings happen and nothing ever happens. Because again, the whole county was being warned. And it also allows for better clarity within the watch warning program. But one of the biggest advancements has been Doppler weather radar. And this is the old Erie Airport radar back in 1985. The radar operators would trace the echoes with pencil. I mean, that's how they would do things back then. But now we have this beautiful radar display with all these colors. And one of the best things we've got with Doppler radar is the ability to see velocities, how the wind is moving relative to the radar beam, either away or toward. That is the velocity signature that shows the rotation. But one of the biggest things has been dual pole radar, which shows us the debris which is lofted from that, which is the tornado vortex signature.
All right, Dakota, thanks for that information. Now, on May 31st, 1985, Lawrence Park Fire Chief Joe Crotty was working for Erie Forge and Steel when he heard a dispatch call say, quote, Albion has been devastated while calling for all squads and resources to come and help out.
Our CEO was actually leaving the facility, stopped, talked to him, and he said, absolutely go down there. You got to do what you got to do. Long story short, we ended up we transported 4 patients. We actually picked up a surgical team from St. Vincent's, and they had, for lack of a better term, a triage area at Northwestern High School. But, some of the things I certainly remember was we actually got rerouted. We couldn't go down 18 and into Albion coming from I guess it'd be the east to the west. We actually had to go to 215, and we came down, and the first thing that came to mind, some of the old black and white films you see with the bombing and the Blitzkrieg of London and whatnot. There are folks just wandering around half covered with mud. And as we worked our way to the high school, it was, one house could be reduced to toothpicks, the other house not touched. And the thing that, being a good Irish Catholic boy, we went up there and went to make the turn. The church was untouched. Everything around of it was just absolutely devastated. But it was one of those things, those visuals, that certainly will leave and has left a lasting impression.
Heck of a recollection from Chief Joe Crotty. Now, on average, you have just 13 minutes of warning before a tornado hits. Think fast. We'll be right back. Hey, Riley, am I reading that wrong?
And there's one girl that used to work with us, she got killed up there, got picked up and thrown into a tree.
And John Stalen, everybody has an incredible story from that day and that weekend.
Yeah, there's no question. If there's flooding on Facebook, 40 years later, you don't forget something like that. And you're not going to forget that, too, especially when we talk about physical features of the tornado. An average tornado is about 500 feet wide. Mm-hmm. That's average. The one that hit central Pennsylvania, almost 2 miles long. Incredible. Take a look at the historical track of this one F4 tornado.
4 decades later, the scars of the land have faded, but look closely, you can still see them, the fainted yellow line. It marks the path of the Moshannon tornado. In north-central Pennsylvania, this monster storm carved a 69-mile path, at times 2 miles wide, making it one of the widest tornadoes ever recorded in the United States. It tore through the Moshannon State Forest and Parker Dam, flattening trees so violently it reportedly triggered readings on the Penn State seismograph in State College. That night in 1985, Pennsylvania witnessed a storm system unlike anything in history. Dozens of tornadoes swept across the region, killing 65 people and injuring hundreds more. The Moshannon tornado was part of a deadly outbreak that slammed the Pennsylvania wilds, devastating towns like Tionesta, Kane, and Tidiute before cutting deep into the forest. 40 years later, the land may have healed, but the memories haven't. For those who lived through it, that night remains a powerful reminder of how quickly everything can change.
I'll toast a break.
And John, we continue to talk. It hits so many areas.
So many areas. When we come back, we're going to go to Warren County and McKean County. We will talk to those folks too with Jackie Palmer's report coming up next.
Somebody said that there was a car behind him, and when they looked back again, the car was gone. The tornado.
I'm standing along German Hill Road in Tionesta, an area hit hard during the 1985 tornado outbreak. On May 31st, a powerful tornado moved through here, destroying homes, cabins, and snapping trees like matchsticks.
I was up on German Hill, filling tanks up, and it came through, and I got in my truck, and I bailed it.
It was terrible, and I know my one aunt, her sister and her niece were both killed on German Hill.
Multiple tornadoes were confirmed in Pennsylvania alone, including one that carved through parts of Warren, McKean, and Forest counties.
We went around to view the damage, and it was horrific.
The storm changed the way local officials prepare for severe weather, improving alert systems and communication protocols. Today, very little visible damage remains along German Hill Road, but for those who are here, the memories of that day are still clear. In Tionesta, Jackie Palmer, Erie News Now.